All right, we are. All right. We're recording.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Good.
We'll have a few, we will definitely have a few more people coming in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Oh my gosh, I forgot.
that's right. After we send them all a text.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing right now. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm sending a bunch of people texts.
Yeah. It's, yeah. No, you can't have too many reminders on this. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and get started because give people a few more minutes, give Angela a little bit of time to talk as well, but also she will be running this as in a fairly interactive format. So that actually will lend itself to people coming in and participating. So for those of you that may not be aware of who I am Sam Staley. I am on the board of the Florida Authors and Publishers Association. And it looks like I will be doing more of these moderation of the practical tips, which I think is a great program for FAPA. I wish I could claim that I started it, but I didn't. That would be Pat Stanford. And along with her cohorts, Chris Gibson and Jane Wood, right?
Wood.
Yeah, that's right. How do you get my Jane straight? Anyway, but how do you forget Jane Wood? Can't really do that. She's a force of nature in and of herself. But anyway, so we're very pleased to have Angela Bowl with us today. She is with the Independent Book Publishers Association. And as we get started, we'll go ahead and we will put the website in the chat. So continue to look at that for resources. The Independent Book Publishers Association is a fantastic organization for independent authors and independent publishers. They have thousands of members, and Angela's going to say a little bit more about that, so I won't take too much more of her time. She has been the CEO since 2016, so she's an experienced association executive. And reading her bio, found that she actually has a master's in book publishing, a master's of science in book publishing from New York University. I didn't even know that there was such a thing, but there is. So we have a professional and an expert and someone who's actually got a credential beyond just a fine arts degree in this. So very interesting if any of that's going to become part of this discussion. But I think that's also useful. And if they have it online, that might be something our members might want to consider looking into. Since we are the Florida Authors and Publishers Association, I think one of the more important values that drives this organization is that all authors pretty much need to think of themselves as a business of their own and work in partnership with publishers, whether they're self-publishing or they're in traditional publishing or any of the types in between. Also, another note, Angela is in Manhattan Beach, and which is an awesome place. If you ever go to the Southern California area or fly into LAX, Manhattan Beach is not too far as the crow flies. As the car drives, that's a different story, depending on when you're hitting it. But it's a beautiful place, great for beach volleyball, surfing, and that type of thing. So great to have you on our practical tips tonight, Angela, and I'm going to just hand this over to you and let you take it.
Thank you. And hi, everybody. I love a perfectly formed group. Thank you guys for coming to spend an hour. I hope it doesn't freak you out to hear that I am hoping we have an interactive conversation today. We're going to talk about the power of associations and networking, and it feels weird to be in a networking conversation and just have me talk at you for an hour. So a lot of this, get ready. Maybe you'll turn your video on. I know Zoom interacting is kind of a strange thing, but we'll talk to each other a little bit, or a lot actually. I'll set it up and then we'll go in that direction. So that's a bit of the fair warning in this. I do have some slides. I will direct the top part of the conversation. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. So let's start. Value of professional organizations and networking. it felt kind of self-explanatory when I received the job, if you will, or the topic. I think that might be because I have 20 years of experience in associations, and I feel like, well, isn't it just obvious what the value of being part of your professional organization is? Doesn't everybody who's in any profession just automatically join their professional organization and become extremely involved and end up running it at the end of the day? That just felt right to me. But there's probably some things that we could do with spending some time on and talking about. First, to tell you just a tiny bit about me, I am the CEO of Independent Book Publishers Association. Sam gave you a little bit of my background. There is such a thing as a master's in book publishing. We can all go and get one. Mine's from NYU. You can get them from Portland State University as well. There's other programs you can go to. I've been the CEO for 8 years, so maybe 2016 is it's been a while. It's been a little bit. And most of my experience actually, though, comes through working in the larger book industry in New York City on standards and best practices and supply chain and how does the book industry run. I'm willing to talk about any of that if it's of interest to you when we kind of open up into a broad conversation. I've always loved the business of book publishing. I know nothing about the craft of writing. I am a completely terrible writer, so I will never be able to read your manuscripts and let you know if you have a good concept, but I can talk to you about how to properly BISAC code it and what the metadata should look like when you finally get it out into the world. The Independent Book Publishers Association, we do have a strong connection to FAPA. You are your own organization, you exist and stand on your own 2 feet, but we do provide some resources to you, including a discounted membership in IBPA if you're interested in joining our association. And we also offer you a scholarship to our publishing university, which happens in April and will be in Orlando, Florida this year. So if that is sparking for you, we can talk a little bit more about that. We're an organization that's a little bit broader than just self-published authors, which we call author publishers. 30% of our membership is author publisher or self-published author. 51% are independent publishers, meaning they're publishing other people's work. We also have a smattering of different other types of membership at IBPA. But for the most part, we're working with people on for the full part, we're working with people on the business of book publishing. We have a mission to lead and serve the independent publishing community through advocacy, education, and tools for success. And we do not care what your business model is. So whether you are publishing your own books, whether you are a traditional publisher, publishing other people's books, or a hybrid publisher, publishing other people's books, or a service provider, publishing other people's books, that's fine. We're very interested in your professionalism in the industry, your ethics, and that's really it. Create great content. Let's not worry. We don't really worry about whether it's your content or somebody else's content, or whether you paid for it or somebody else paid for it in that case. A couple other things about me. I found this picture of 8th grade. Every single person has a turtleneck. I thought that was hilarious. So I am the previous president of the Turtleneck Fan Club from 8th grade in South Bend, Indiana. One person doesn't have a turtleneck, or maybe 2. I will let you find them. They are not in my club. I also hike a lot. I'm a big fan of big hikes if I can find them. I have the book club in Redondo Beach, the Redondo Beach Book Club, which has got hundreds and hundreds of people in it. And I love my book club. I make them wear name tags. And I also teach a class at UCLA in their extension program called Self-Publishing. So if you're interested in something that's more in-depth, I think this is one of the prior students said, in other words, it's top-notch book nerd knowledge. That's very cute and very nice. I do teach this class September 28th, we're going to start again. So if you'd like, I can send you some information about that. I've really enjoyed being part of the UCLA program as well. So that's me and our organization. Now I'm kind of going to give a little setup and start turning it over to you guys to start talking. The value of professional organizations and networking. I'm going to show you a video that comes from this organization called ASAE. I have a little bit of background noise. Just FYI, maybe if you mute at this point, that would be helpful. There it goes. Thank you. I think that was Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. ASAE, the American, so you have to kind of write it out, American Society of Association Executives. That's an organization that leads association executives. So just so you know that I actually practice what I preach, not only do I run an association, I am also a member of an association. And that association is the Association for Association Executives. And that's just a tongue twister, that's true. So I'll show you a little bit of their promo. It's only 90 seconds. So you can get a sense of how they are placing associations and the value of associations.
The power of associations. The power of America. The power of A. There are over 60,000 associations across America, employing over 200,000 people and serving hundreds of millions of members. From the creation of the highway system and the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act, to assisting during disasters like Hurricane Katrina and the COVID pandemic, associations have been a vital part of the American story every step of the way. Every year, associations are the primary source of post-college education, drive over $1 trillion into the U.S. economy, and help create and maintain industry standards. That is the power of associations. That is the power of America. That is the power of A.
Not too long, a little bit of, I guess, promo for associations generally speaking, which FAPA is absolutely an association in that way. So I think it's interesting to think about the ways in which associations make an impact on the world, generally speaking. I mean, you're talking about the ADA Act and et cetera, but there are other ways in which just being part of an association and involved in that work can benefit. I'm going to spend a little time, as I said at the top, saying a couple of things that I've seen through IBPA work that I think our members have benefited from participating in. But then we're going to have a bit of a discussion, and I'll prep you now because I hate when people just throw a question at me at the last minute, and I'm like, I don't know. If you had told me, I would have come prepared. So to be prepared for group discussion, how have you experienced the benefits of association through your membership in FAPA? So think a little bit about, what are you doing here? Why are you here? What brought you here? What do you want to accomplish while you're part of this group? Because associations, if nothing else, are groups and communities of people that are working together toward a common goal, right? So it can't really happen if people aren't actually working together and communicating about what their objectives are and their goals are and why they're here and what they would like to accomplish with their time and their effort for being here. So we'll get to yours. And we'll get rid of that video and start with some things that I've seen. So that video did say to you that associations are the leading source of post-collegiate education, or I can't remember exactly the words he used. Somebody could jump in and help me out. And that's very true. So once people get out of formal education, they get into their career, they need to advance in their career in one way or another. Associations are the biggest way, the most important way that people are able to accomplish that. So many associations will have credentialing functions as part of the work that they do. If they don't have something as standard and formal as a credentialing, like you get your certificate in authorship or your certificate in publishing, something of that nature, then they'd absolutely have educational opportunities, as you know, because you're here today. So those can be virtual, they can be in person, they can be formal, they can be informal, but they're planned by the association. And then, of course, a next step is to credential. The medical associations and things of that nature, they have all the credentialing. IBPA doesn't have credentials. I don't think FAPA does either. But you can kind of think about and talk about what might it look like to have something that says, I've passed the test. I know the things I need to know in order to be a professional book publisher, for example, in our case. So one of the benefits of joining your association and participating is you get that education that I had to pay New York University many dollars for. I'm still paying New York University many dollars for that education. Access to industry leaders. So does anybody know who this person is?
Is that Peg? Trying to remember her last name. Starts with an E.
It is not a Peg, but I get it. She looks like a Peg. Another life. No. Well, this is Dominique Rocca. Dominique is the founder of Source Books. which is one of the largest independent publishers in the country and has been sold to Simon & Schuster in the past couple of years. Independent publishing rock star, to be sure. So someone who you might write down and look up and figure out what she did, because she started with one book. So maybe this journey like makes sense to you in your space or where you're at. But she had an idea for a business book. That's why her company is called Source Books, by the way, which makes no sense if you think about how large her company is, and it does children's books and women's lit and everything. But it's called Source Books because it was a one book about accounting of some nature related to source books, and she spent $18,000 of her retirement fund kind of figuring it out and getting it done and putting it out and marketing it and making it something, and then she ballooned an entire business out of it. So from one book that she wrote and published out of her house, she built this huge empire, Source Books, and eventually ended up selling it to Simon & Schuster. So your associations can introduce you to people like this, and you can sit down, and generally they're pretty generous with their time, which is astonishing to me in terms of any other industry in the world. People in the book publishing industry, people who are book people, very generous with their knowledge and their time. One of our board chairs always says, we're not selling hangers, we're selling books. If we're selling hangers, once you buy a hanger, you're done. You have a hanger. Your shirt's on it and it's in the closet. But when you're selling books, once you're done with my World War II novel, you're ready for your next World War II novel. You like the thing, you're going to buy somebody else's thing that's like that thing. We're not in competition with each other. We're in cooperation. Your book does well. My book that's like that book is going to do just as well. We're going to work together. So access to industry leaders at conferences and such. This is all these pictures come from IBPA, by the way. So she was our keynote in 2019 at our conference. So let's see if any of this is sparking for you guys for our big group discussion. The other thing that associations can give you is access to industry partners. So think about what FAPA is doing to introduce you to organizations like Lulu, like Ingram, distributors who can help get your book out, BookBaby, ebook platforms that can help you to format your book, NetGalley, a million, right? I mean, a million, that's an exaggeration. A lot of industry partners are out there, and they have services that would be helpful to you. So not only should and could your association be introducing you to these industry partners, I mean, this may be a controversial statement, but they should be getting you discounts with these folks too, if they can negotiate those things. So it's access to the partners, it's better deals working with those partners. And the partners are very interested in negotiating with associations because we stand with a lot of members behind us that we can bring into their platform. So industry partner access. Have you used FAPA for one-on-one consulting? Have you found a mentor or a mentee? Have you offered yourself as one? And I'm not necessarily talking about a formal process, by the way. Maybe there isn't a formal mentor-mentee situation, but you are all there and you can all connect with each other and talk to each other about, I'm looking for somebody who can help me understand Onyx, if that word rings for you guys, and get somebody to sit with you and do one-on-one consulting. That comes through your association involvement. The video talked about best practices. From my perspective, it's one of the most important things that an association does outside of networking. How does this industry work? How should it work? Why do we have the barcode on the back of the book where we have the barcode on the back of the book? And why do we embed the price in it? There's reasons and history and story behind all of that. Why do we have, you guys can probably know this, but why do we have the spine of the book, the title, the author, and the publisher insignia? Why are we doing that? It's very helpful when you're in a bookstore. If you think about bookstores, which were really everything to the publishing industry forever, we didn't really have online stuff until the mid-90s. So we think we've always shopped on Amazon, but we really haven't. And in a brick and mortar bookstore, very rarely would your book be face out, if ever. because books are going to cram in as bookstores as many books as you possibly get. It makes the spine of your book, when you create it, very, very important to consider. Typeface, readability. That's why you have to have those three things, because those are the three most important things, apparently. So we say about your book, what's the title? Who wrote it? Who published it? That gets to put on the spine, because that is your real estate, and that's the only thing people are going to see. So the best practices and why these things are in place is something your association can either develop. Many associations are developing these things, or teach you, so that if you are self-publishing your book, for example, I know not everyone here is a self-publisher, but if you are, it's very easy to make your book look like a book that came out from Penguin Random House, and also just as easy to make your book look like something that did not come out from Penguin Random House, that looks very amateurish, and everyone can tell right away that it doesn't have a professional polish. And our industry is harsh, and immediately that is put in the no pile. It just disappears immediately. But that's a sad, sad story, because it is not difficult to learn those little tips and tricks that make it a professionally published book. Your associations can teach you that. Your leadership opportunities. This was me presenting an award to one of our past board members after he had served for 4 years. As we start to talk as an open group, what are you thinking about in terms of your participation in FAPA? Where do you think that could take you as a volunteer or a leader in the association? Have you even thought about that? Or are you just, you just kind of feel like the right place is to listen and to learn right now, which is also a great place to be. But I think there's always some space when you're in an organization. And I do think you are in FAPA. You're part of this thing. It's a community formed together of all of you to think about, where do your strengths lie? Where would you like them to lie? And what are the leadership opportunities in this space that you can plug into? Just a couple more here. Advocacy is huge. Your association is advocating for you in the broader industry. For sure, for example, FAPA is talking to us at the national level, at the for IBPA about what you guys need, what you're looking at, what you're seeing. And we are talking to the bigger publishing industry about, well, hey, why can't we get more independently published books on bookstore shelves? Why can't we get better terms for distribution? Why is POD so expensive? There's a lot of issues in the industry that your associations are trying to work out on your behalf, and they're doing all of that behind the scenes. So, hopefully they're actually also publishing articles about it and letting you know, but they're doing all of that work behind the scenes as well as in the advocacy space. So what is your association doing to advocate for independent publishing, in our case, maybe authors in FAPA's case, or authors and publishers, because it's in the title for both. New friends. This is a hug, right? So we're talking about networking today, and it's so hard on Zoom sometimes. I don't know how are we gonna walk away friends. But I will say, so Tara's on this call. You guys know her she came to Publishing University. I recognized her as soon as she came up on screen. I remember her, we talked, we had exchange, and I've never met Tara in person ever. We only ever went to a virtual conference together and participated. So if you're leaning into the experience and you're trying to suck everything you can out of it, and you're not just letting it flow by you, which is also very easy to do, I think you can make new virtual friends. So we'll try today to walk away with one more new virtual friend that you can take into the world with you. Our board of directors has often said that, I guess they like the work that they do, but you wouldn't really know it. They prefer the friendships they made. And that's what they talk about. They never, in our recap at the end of a year, we ask what they're most proud of, or what work did we do this year that really rang for them. And they're like, well, I had a great conversation with Joshua, and it really moved my business forward, and that was really helpful. So it's all in those human connections that are being made in associations. And you got to scrape them out, Is admin, your name is admin on the screen. But you can unmute and jump in, and thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Okay. I do have a question. This is so exciting, and I really appreciate that you're here to answer some questions and to educate us in different things here. You mentioned publishers, the Publisher University, and you're coming to Orlando. What is covered there?
Oh,
And I think Tara
yeah.
went there too. So
Yeah.
could you, either one of you give me a little bit more information?
Yes, that's part of the education. So I don't want to oversell, but I do think it's a bit soup to nuts. So it is the business of book publishing from, once the idea is done and it's ready to go, all the way through, packaging, promotion, selling. We do not talk about the craft of writing. So we don't get into how do you create a great manuscript. We don't talk about selling to agents, because you don't need an agent if you're the publisher. It's everything from the publisher's perspective, not from the author's perspective. It's a lot of marketing, how to market books. It's a lot of how to distribute books, because those are two really important things once you get beyond having a great book. So we assume a great book. You've written a great book, you've packaged it well. We do some design courses so that you can see what good book design looks like. And then we just talk about getting those books sold. How do you build a business in publishing? What does it look like to build a publishing business?
And when is this happening in Orlando? What dates?
Well, we will have a virtual and in person. So you can do just the virtual part if you want. The virtual part is April 2021. And then the in-person part is April 29 and 30. Those are the correct dates, April 29 and 30. So you can come to the virtual and do most of the, I don't want to get too off topic, but I will tell you, like somebody said to us, don't make me fly to Orlando and sit in on something I could have did on Zoom.
Right.
So that's our guiding philosophy. Like, we're not going to make you, well, you're not going to fly, but we're not going to make people fly to Orlando and do something they could have done on Zoom. So all the stuff you could have done on Zoom is going to be done in the virtual portion, April 20 and 21. And all the stuff that you need to do in person, Sam mentioned conferences is a great place to network. It's easier to network. I did make the point, you can make virtual friends, but all of those parties and bigger things and award ceremonies and longer workshops, you want to sit on Zoom for 5 hours, but you might take a 5-hour workshop, will happen in person.
Arlene has her hand up. Arlene, yes.
Yes, I have a comment because I'm fairly new to Florida. I've belonged to FAPA for a couple of years, but the pandemic has kind of limited things. Plus, since it covers the whole state, I don't know how much is ever in person. But I also have belonged to IBPA for probably 10 years and BEPA, which is the San Francisco sister of FAPA. I've belonged to BEPA since my first book came out in 2010, which I published about 14 books since then. But I still belong because now it's all Zoom, and I think they're going to keep the Zoom option. So even when they start meeting in person again, but because it covers a smaller area, they meet in person every month for 3 hours. And I can't tell you how valuable that association has been, because I've been a member for a long time, and 60 people probably go to those meetings. And when they were in person, the first hour is Q&A, and people have very different backgrounds. Some of them are ebook producers, and some are audiobook producers, and there's authors, and there's book midwives who will take your book through the process, and there's editors and illustrators. So everything, it's just a wealth of information. And then everybody in the second hour, everyone who is there has 20 or 25 seconds to introduce themselves, say what they've done lately or what they do, and then there's a speaker. And I cannot tell you how valuable that organization has been to me. And I'm sure FAPA will be too once I can start doing things. I do attend all of these. But it's been just, I couldn't have published those books without that association.
Wow.
Cheers for associations.
Yeah. Tara.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a little bit of the reverse in that, I joined FAPA in 2015 after speaking at one of the annual conferences. And because I'm in Connecticut, when everything was in person, I never could really fully participate in FAPA. And so COVID moving things online has made it so that I've been able to be much more active with FAPA than I could otherwise. And by the same token, I went to IBPA's PubU. I've been a member of IBPA for years, but never went to anything because I didn't really understand what all it offered. And I was blown away by PubU. And so if you have the opportunity, especially with it being local next year, I highly recommend going to it. One of the things I've always appreciated about FAPA is that there's a strong commitment and focus on publishing and publishing well, but there are a lot of author publishers as opposed to somebody who's really actively trying to build a publishing business, publishing other people. And so one of the things that I got out of IBPA's PubU is just connecting with other publishers and getting really into the meat of some of the most important things that help you build that business. One of the sessions I went to when it was virtual this year was literally about scaling your publishing business. And that's not something you typically would find at a lot of the authors and publishers associations because they try and have more of a balance between those who are self-publishing and those who are publishing others. And so I think there's room and space for all of these different associations based specifically on what you're hoping to achieve with your writing business, whatever that entails for you. But I highly recommend if you have a chance to attend PubU, whether you do it in person or virtually next year, definitely go for it. I was really kind of blown away from it, and I've become very actively involved in IBPA since then. I'm like at all of the member roundtables and at all of the monthly webinars and promoting it a lot to my own network. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, Jane has her hand up, but Angela, I don't want to squeeze you out of all this because you're our primary speakers. So do you, you should be, feel free to, jump in there or call on people as well. I mean, so I can back out of this completely.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. And this is actually, this is kind of energy I want. So thank you guys for bringing it. And this is the last of the concepts that I brought that if you participate in your associations, you might get your photo in an IBPA presentation, like our photo star here. So just know that that could happen to you. And if that's exciting, you should definitely come to an in-person conference. That is the overall. So I do want to open it up and let's talk about how you're experiencing your association and other things that could be helpful to you. However you guys want to take this group discussion and conversation, we have about a half an hour for it. How have you experienced the benefit of association through your membership in FAPA? I'll moderate it. Here's some potential topics that I just ran through very quickly. You can jump on any of those, and we'll start with our photo star, Jane Wood, who looked great. Looked like you're having a good time in that photo. It's probably on here somewhere, isn't it?
Yep. Bottom right.
Bottom right. Looking good.
Yeah.
Hi, Angela. I wanted to comment on what Tara had just said about attending Publishing University. I've been to several. I've learned so much, and I'm really looking forward to it being in Florida this year. I'll definitely be there. And I'm probably putting you on the spot, Angela, but can you share any of the kinds of speakers that you're going to be having there in Orlando in April?
We don't, we haven't even opened the call for speakers yet. That opens on September 15th. So we will start to pull in interested folks and start reaching out to the larger keynote addresses at the end of this month. And then the full program is announced in December. I don't know. I mean, who do you want to hear from?
I know the ones that I really remember in the past is when you bring in, best-selling authors, and you always have several. I specifically remember Kwame Alexander, the year he got the Newbery Award. I mean, because I write in that same genre, I was just blown away that he was there. And of course, I followed his career since then. So it's very inspiring, as Tara was saying, when you can meet other people that have done well in the industry. And it's very encouraging because, as we all know, writing can be a very solitary, a very lonely career or job or endeavor. And it's wonderful when you can go out and meet those people, other people, and ask those questions, those very specific questions. It's just very inspiring. So I would encourage everyone to certainly come to our FAPA events, but also take advantage of the fact that IBPA is going to be in Orlando in April.
Well, we will give you guys a special discount as well. We'll get that over to you through our affiliate listserv.
Cool.
And BAPA will get one too, Arlene. So just let them know. No favorites, no favorite. So where else are you guys finding value in associations or in your work? Or if you're not finding it, where would you like to find it? What would be helpful to you if you want to take that direction instead? Steve?
I think for me, being new to the whole business of publishing, what I'm looking forward to learning is, how do you meet an agent? How do you learn to take your book on the road, assuming you get as far as getting an agent, getting a publisher, and getting out there? As I mentioned in chat, I was in the defense industry for 38 years and everything was done with networking. You know, if you wanted to get a contract let with a government agency, you had to go and shake some hands and learn how business was done and get some teammates together who had capabilities that you didn't have and share them and get the mission done. And everything that I've listened to so far, not just on FAPA, but also on Authors Guild, seems to indicate to me that it's the business of publishing that's really almost as important as how well you write. So that's the main reason I came to this forum, to find out how to put it all together.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I have benefited a great deal from by being in these associations is that I found partners. Not only partners, just the relationships, and actually Pat Stanford is probably the queen of using partnerships, because she actually finds ways to take authors on the road with her. And the idea that you can sort of expand your footprint beyond what you can do as an individual. And so even that I'm active in the Tallahassee Writers Association, we have a mobile bookstore. And so we're able to give authors some visibility that they wouldn't have if they're only working on their own, but it's a complementary thing, not just it's not a substitute for a lot of that other stuff. Rossi?
Yeah. And I'm going to put a pin there, Steve, on networking, because I think there's so much to say about it. But Rossi, let's jump there first.
No, so I wanted to add, I know that what Steve was saying, I've been writing for, I don't know how many years. And I got involved in several associations that related to my writing. And for example, I write mysteries, and I write romance and romantic suspense. So I was very involved with the RWA, I'm the Mystery Writers of America. I don't know if you hear me double. For some reason, I hear me twice, myself twice. And I started just as a member, and then I got more involved. I got involved with the leadership of those associations. And I started not only networking, I got to meet agents and publishers. Because my background is marketing, then I decided to get involved and started doing workshops. And it was one of the best things that I could do, because I started traveling, going from conference to conference for different chapters. And I got to meet so many wonderful people in different stages of their career. And we exchange, experiences and things that we each other, we had tried in our publishing history. And then I found IBPA, and I became also a member. And right now I help other authors. Because I was part of the association, I actually I was the one setting up the meetings with the Pitch Fest, with the meetings and the publishing houses. And that's a great thing to do if you're in an association. It's just volunteer and actually get involved. I met so many wonderful people and learned so much about the industry just because I volunteer. And right now, 20 something years after, I am part actually of a hybrid publisher. That's why I'm in the IBPA. So who knows, you start publishing one book and you are the founders of a publishing company.
That's how it works. We've got a lot of members that start with that one book. I mean, obviously our poster child is Dominique, who I told you about, and built an empire, but many people start with a single book and then figure it out, if you will, and then can kind of use that knowledge to help other people come through the process. But Steve, to your point, the publishing industry is very, very small. It's shockingly small. And once you're kind of in it, you begin to understand there's probably, I used to joke when I would go to Book Expo, there's probably 200 people that run this entire industry, that essentially run the industry, and then everybody else, we're all just trying to get our jobs done. But it's a very, very small place at the end of the day. So figuring out who they are, who's playing and who's not, it's an important thing to do in publishing.
It's funny.
Angela, this is Jane again. I was wondering if you've seen any major drastic changes in the industry because of COVID, beyond the obvious. We all function in our own small worlds, but in the larger world, are you seeing any trends that are probably going to carry forward?
Well, you did say beyond the obvious, but I'll start with, one of the major ones is what happened to brick and mortar bookstores. I think one bookstore closed a week during COVID. There was a lot of shrinking in that market, and Amazon obviously picked up a lot of that slack. So I will say that freaked a lot of the larger publishers out because they do a lot of volume through brick and mortar bookstores. But indie publishers and author publishers, self-published authors, typically sell online and almost exclusively online and don't really get into brick and mortar. So that was the huge panic mode for the quote industry, but we didn't see it as a necessarily panic mode for self-published authors, small indie presses who have had a very difficult time getting their foot into a brick and mortar, or their foot into the brick and mortar door, I guess, and their books on the shelves. So, but it was something that our industry really struggled with. We did see book sales go up. So that was an interesting thing to acknowledge. Publishers were making a lot more money. A lot more books were being sold, not through brick and mortars, but definitely a lot more books were being sold. That has started to tamper down in the past couple months. That's also been interesting to me. So people were reading a lot in COVID when they were stuck inside, and maybe they're not going to read as much as they were, or let's be honest, they were buying a lot of books. Who knows if they read the books or not? I don't read half the books I read, but I buy, but that's an aside. But that was the obvious. You said beyond the obvious. The less obvious might be related to printing. The printing industry is really got hit hard, and couple of different competing issues there. One is just paper shortages across the board. I think we forget that books are these physical things, and when we print them, we actually tore a tree down to make that book happen. So we got to love that story a lot, right? Because not that I'm a rabid environmentalist, but we literally did tear down a tree. Let's never forget. Hashtag never forget that tree. And then we just had a huge shortage of paper. That was one thing that was happening. So you might have seen the cost of things go up. But then beyond that, all of the publishers, the larger publishers, took everything that they were going to be doing in 2020, mid and late 2020, and just pushed it back. So then we had this huge jam of content that needed to be published right away in 2021. And it pushed people's printing cycles out like 6 months. Like you might have run out of books that you needed, and then you tried to order more books and your printer told you, okay, I'll get them to you in 6 months. That's how big the backlog is here. And that was, again, it was paper for sure, but it was also COVID, and it was the timelines that got completely messed up because of COVID. We also saw the last example, or the last thing, lots of things happened, right? I'd be interested in how it affected you guys. But another thing, returns from Amazon warehouse were really, really huge. I don't think it affected a lot of small indie presses or author publishers as much, but if you're working in this space wherein you're selling your books, larger quantities of your books, Amazon just returned a ton of stuff. Because do you remember at the very time, maybe you don't, maybe it was a little insider baseball, but at some point, Amazon, at the top of COVID, Amazon said, we're going to prioritize life-saving things in our warehouses or whatever, like masks and things. So they started to say they're going to deprioritize things like books. So they started to ship a lot of books back, started to take a lot of books out of circulation in that space. So that freaked everybody out for a long time too. Yeah. But IBPA had an uptick in membership. People were sitting at home bored, joining associations and stuff. Steve?
Wondering if there's an accepted industry set of best practices and if that has changed because of COVID, whereas you come out of this and there's a sort of slow rolling recovery, if there are things that you have to do as a new author that are slightly different than what you would have possibly read about. Yes.
So I can give an impression. One thing it's a bit tongue in cheek, but the publishing industry is not going to change. Like that's the tongue in cheek. We are very wedded to our processes and our policies and the ways that we do things at the larger capital I industry level. So change does not happen easily. Related to COVID, and this is something I would push for, but the industry's not quite ready for it. We have this long lead time that they say you need in order to ramp up your marketing and do all the pre-sales and work all of that out. And we also have this idea that we're going to print a lot of books in order to ship in. I think the industry is going to go a little bit more toward shorter lead times, able to publish more quickly, use print on demand to do so. But as we do that, we're faced with stigma against print on demand books. So we got to work through that a little bit. And also that is an online selling model. That is not in the brick and mortar store selling model. So I do think that publishers need to think better about their direct to consumer marketing efforts. And I think publishers have always assumed their consumer is the bookstore, the library, the trade channels. That's who a publisher sells to. And a publisher has never even been allowed to sell direct to consumer. The sacrilege, how dare you step on the bookseller space. Our margins are small enough as it is. And now you're going to take my margins by selling direct to consumer. That's not what a good publishing partner does. So publishers have been loath to sell direct to consumer at that level because bookstores would run them out of town. But they've got to do better because bookstores are closing. People aren't going there, I say, as I want to open my own independent bookstore, but people aren't really going. So those shifts I think could happen and should happen to make us a better industry, but it's going to take time. What are you guys seeing? How have your businesses shifted?
I can comment because I write kids' books and I sell most of my books when I do author visits to schools. Obviously, I'm not doing in-person author visits. I didn't do any last year and none this year so far, but I did quite a few virtual author visits, which has been very interesting because I've still been able to generate good sales through those. Usually when I do an in-person visit, I have books with me and I sell them that day or I sell them in advance of my visit. But I found even when I was doing a virtual visit, the kids still responded particularly after we talked. or I had my session with them, I would always send a order form to the teacher, and I would get orders afterwards. And that really surprised me, because when I had previously done a lot of Skype visits, there was a program called Skype in the Classroom that went away. And I would Skype with schools in India and Spain and all over the world. Most of them obviously got my books through ebooks. And I have noticed every time I do a virtual author visit, my ebook sales go up, because that's an easy way for the kids and the teachers and the parents to get them. So I had to do a little shifting of gears with that. I'm hoping I'll be able to go back in to schools, because I really miss that interaction with the kids, with my audience. It's good for me, and it's certainly good for them, and it's definitely good for sales.
Yeah, I did see that too, though. Like, people got used to virtual, though, if that makes sense. Like, we just kind of did it. Before the pandemic, I tried to do a virtual meeting, and my staff would be like, I don't know where my camera is, it doesn't work, or something. I'm like, it's right there, you're fine. But like, people got really used to it. Arlene?
My sales have been really good, because probably because my books are basically textbooks. They're educational, and I think with virtual classrooms. And one thing that I noticed recently, which has really helped me, Amazon has helped me a great deal. I have one book that sells much more than any workbook that sells much more than any other of my books. And Amazon has put it at about half price for some reason during the past several months. And the sales have gone way up, because the schools cannot get it cheaper from Ingram. So they appear to be buying it from Amazon. And since I get the same royalties, no matter what they price it at, I'm happy. And you can't get it for half price at Ingram, even with my 55% discount to them. So I'm real happy right now.
That's good. I mean, the one thing there, sometimes I'm going into deep water, so save me if I'm starting to drown. But like, I think one of the things I heard you say there was they discounted it, but you make the same regardless of what they charge for it. And I think I've heard a lot of members come in to us, and they're just so distraught by the discount and what their Amazon is charging. And I keep thinking, but what it's like, you make the same as the publisher. And so I don't know, go discount the thing, I guess. I mean, as long as you're making the same as you would if it was full price sold, I don't know. It's
obviously driving up the sales, because it's cheaper than getting a bulk at Ingram.
And that's what I call a battle that is not worth fighting. Like the fact that it was discounted, like people lose their minds. I'm like, yeah, but don't lose your mind about that. There's many other things to lose your mind about, but that's not.
I lost my mind when somebody else got the buy box, and it wasn't on Prime, and I lost it then.
See, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to lose your mind. Tara?
Yeah, it's interesting, because a lot of people will complain about that, but they don't complain if a bookstore puts the book on sale. I think it's just the fact that it's Amazon, and they think Amazon makes all this money in the first place, and so they get all up in arms about that. But you were asking about, how COVID has affected our business. And for us, it's been very interesting, because the last year started off very slowly for us. We know the cycle of when we typically sign contracts with new authors, and we know pretty much between November and February, we typically don't sign a new contract. Last year, we didn't sign a new contract until the end of May. And so it was really kind of nerve-wracking, because we didn't know what was going to happen. And yet last year was financially a comparable year to any other year prior to COVID. And this year we have a 260% increase in the number of contracts signed this year. And, we're still the same size, trying to do all the extra business. So that's been an interesting thing. But what ended up happening is everyone has always thought about writing a book, had the time during the pandemic to write it. And so, of course, the natural result after writing it is they wanted to publish it. At the same time, our book sales increased significantly, because people wanted to read the kind of books we were putting out there. So what I'm kind of looking at is trying to forecast where things are going to go in the next year, because now that people are back at work more and they have less time than they had previously, we're seeing those contract rates drop off. in terms of how many we're getting in. And so I want to try and figure out the puzzle of how do you keep that going, keep the momentum going.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left and we will close. I don't know if Angela has time after a few minutes afterward, but we will probably end on time. But I'll be able to hang around at least a little bit as well. I don't know if Steve or Rossi, you had your hands up at some point. Did you get your questions answered or your comments were addressed?
It was me. No, I just wanted to make a comment about the sales, but we run out of time, so it's fine.
Oh, actually, we got 5 minutes left.
Okay, so I just wanted to share my experience. In our case, we saw an increase of sales for ebooks because a lot of my authors are ebooks, and it got to the point that we didn't have enough authors or enough books because people were buying them and they were asking for more for the same author, and it got to the point that they started doing shorts, and the shorts I'm talking about maximum of 10,000 words. Those shorts started selling like hotcakes. We were not fast enough to produce the shorts on Amazon, and that was a trend. It is dying a little bit now, but at the beginning of the pandemic, that was something that was happening. And a lot of our authors would do like really short, maximum 10, and they would try to have something like every 3 weeks to be able to put it. And that's why things like Radish and like those apps that are shorts and then you actually publish chapters or seasons, they became really sorry about that. They became very popular during the pandemic too. And that's why Amazon now has Vela, which is trying to do the same thing of publishing the chapters. It is because of that trend of the shorts that it just blew up during the pandemic. That's what I wanted to share.
Not wrong. Well, I don't know how you guys feel about it. I feel like I want to fight the good fight until the end of time. Like I will take my literature long form. Thank you. I'm so, but I get it. I mean, it's obviously a reaction to current state where everything is in 30 characters or less, and people are reading shorter. They're not reading long form as much. But we're okay. We still have an industry, and we're still going to publish long form, and we're going to work on our literacy issues. There's so much we could talk about. Like, honestly, if we're in the book industry and we are not focusing also on literacy issues and making sure people can read well enough to enjoy all the fantastic content that we're creating and producing, we're missing a mark there. But this has been lovely. We have a couple minutes. I love Sam. He's like, listen, we're on time. We're starting on time. We're ending at 5. It's great. It's late for you guys on the East Coast. Is there any parting? I don't have any parting. My parting would be to say to you that you have this amazing organization at your fingertips in FAPA, and there are a lot of people here to connect with. It's very difficult sometimes. I'm an introvert. It's very hard I will go sleep for an hour after this. It's kind of hard to do the networking stuff, but good on you for being here and working through it. It's a good thing to do. So thanks to FAPA for offering opportunities.
There's one more question, but yep. I'm sorry. I know your
Eileen.
name.
Eileen.
Yeah.
I heard you say earlier you have a lot of books, but you don't read them. Some of them you don't even read. I was wondering, what will catch your eye when you pick up a book? What is it that grabs you so you don't want to put it to the side? What writing style, or what is it that gets your interest, grabs your interest?
That's so hard to say. And I didn't want to imply, it's only because I go to the bookstore and I buy 10. Like there's no way that I could get through because everything grabs my eye. Everything looks interesting in one way or another. I think my eyes are too big for my stomach, but I don't finish everything. And I like sci-fi and fantasy. So, and I like, my favorite book is The Remains of the Day. I like really sad, melancholy. Life is just not the way it was supposed to be, and now I'm dead. Like that's my favorite storyline ever. Like, it's just a terrible experience for everybody, and there's no more time left. And now I don't know why, I love those. So Remains of the Day is one of the best examples of that storyline I think that I've ever read. It's lovely.
Picture that of you, Angela.
It's so affirming because you read it and you're like, I'm gonna be on it. I'm not gonna be that guy on the bench at the end of the story regretting his decisions, or I'm just gonna get on it. So it's good.
Yeah, when I see where I go to the bookstore and I'm looking through something that I just want to grab some good reading and go. I don't know why I do this, but what seems to work for me, if I read the first, I would say not chapter, but maybe say 10 pages, and if it doesn't, I'm sorry to say, if it doesn't grab me right away, I'll put it right back and I'll go on to the next. So I know for me, that's how it works, but I was just wondering how it worked for any of you here. What is when you go to the store and you want to pick up a good book or you think it's a good book, what makes it good for you guys when you say, oh, I've got to have this, I got to read this book and bring it up to the cash register? How do you work it?
Well, I'm a very patient reader. So for me, it's the story. It's the story that really grabs me. And so I can get through the first 50 pages of anything. And so I'm probably not the best example because that's not who most buyers are. I think actually most buyers are more like you, Eileen.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought I was odd.
Oh, yeah. No, I think.
I'm impatient too.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are agents. I mean, that's 100% what an agent will do, what a buyer will do. They might not even crack the cover, actually. They might just look at what your cover looks like and decide it's not worth my time. And sometimes the interesting thing too is like, it might be a fine cover, but it's just not a cover of the day, of the moment. Like covers look like this now, and therefore, and this doesn't, it doesn't understand the trends in book cover design. So they'll be like, no. But yeah, more like Arlene and Steve and that for people, which makes your, whatever you call those things, your manuscript submissions very important. Good on you for being writers.
Yeah, we are now at 8:03. So if anyone wants to leave, you don't have to be embarrassed. It's actually officially the end. However, I don't know, Angela, you need to go. You're welcome to go.
I'm happy to stay for a little while if anybody has a question. If you guys want to talk about metadata, I can stay until like 5:15 or so. But you can go too. Please don't hang out here. It's late as well, but I'm happy to.
Thank you very much, Angela. We really appreciate you giving us your time. It's been very informative.
Absolutely. A lot of new entrenched FAPA volunteers coming your way, Sam.
Yes, we need more. We can find a way to use everybody.
How do you find out what the volunteer jobs are? I mean, what are they at in order to say, I belong to FAPA, but I don't know, I'm new. I don't know, how do you find out what what's available for volunteers?
Well, one thing you can do is you can come to these practical tips and find an identified board member like me or Pat Stanford and shoot me an email. That would be probably one of the best things to do. I'll put my email. Whoops, I was sending something to Pat without saying it to everyone. I'll put my email in the chat so that you can contact me. And then if I'm not the right person, which I'm probably not, but I know the right person. So this is about the networking, right? It's not necessarily finding the person that's going to help you, but if they know the person that's going to help you, that's where you go. I was just thinking, Angela, that I think I've published now, I think 13 books. I think my 14th book's coming out. Evenly split nonfiction, fiction. The only book that I sort of cold pitched was my first one. Every other book has come through a networking contact. either at a conference, somebody knew somebody, or I knew somebody who knew somebody at the publisher, or whatever it might be. And I'm not competing for the big 8 or what is now the big 5, which will soon be the big 3, and then maybe the big 1. But still, it's hard to underestimate these networks.
So you have a publisher for all 12, 13 of your books. You found a publisher for all of your books.
Yes. So they're all different. They're all different. Yeah.
Different
So
not the same publisher.
no, most of my fiction is through one publisher, but I've actually had a couple of it. It also depended on where I was in my writing career in terms of how I used them and who I actually engaged with. My fiction is through small independent presses. My nonfiction is with bigger presses, but they're also not the big commercial presses because I write in a specific niche area. But still, and that's a whole different beast, working with a publisher that's churning out thousands of titles a year. It's anyway. Oh, Pat has her hand up.
I actually forgot what I put my hand up for.
It's going to be so good.
If board members could put their email in the chat, that would help people.
I'm sorry.
Options too.
I'll put my hand down. I don't remember what it was.
All right. You're awesome, Pat. It's okay.
It was important at the time.
So I was going to share earlier, you talked about kind of how it all starts with one book, Angela. And when I got my start, I self-published 5 books and ran into a problem with each one of them that my mentor refers to as unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know, and it's only through doing that you learn. And so we kind of went through that process, and after a while decided that, I wanted to help other people avoid the same issue. And it was funny because I was interviewing Maria Desmondi yesterday because I'm gearing up for my virtual summit in October, which is called Publish with Purpose, and she's going to be one of the speakers on it. And so she said it was the exact same thing with her. She spent about 10 years self-publishing her own works before she kind of ironed out all of the challenges that she ran into with it, and then felt comfortable sharing it with others. But it does start with one book.
What did you call it? Some unconscious incompetence?
Unconscious incompetence. Yes.
Okay. I'm stealing it. It's so true. I think people are afraid of unconscious incompetence sometimes, and it stops them from doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And we just got to keep failing at all this stuff for a while, and then we can do it. My UCLA class is online, and it's available. Yeah, I mean, it's from 7 to 10 p.m. Pacific time, so it'd be a little late for you East Coasters, but it is online through UCLA.
I thought most writers write in the evening and early morning hours anyway.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just
Thank you.
all-nighter. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm on the Pacific Coast. I'm in California now. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's through the UCLA Extension Writers Program.
is there any classes starting up soon?
September 28th.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll look for it.
it'll be fun. It was fun. It's been fun. We do it on Zoom, so you got to be real. You know what I mean? Like we're on Zoom the whole time.
Is it credit or non-credit?
I think you can get a certificate through this writers program, but it's not for UCLA.
But I could say I'm going to UCLA, so that sounds cool.
Yeah, that's how I say I teach there. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Put it on your resume. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool. I had a thought that I lost.
Oh, somebody said they were interested in metadata.
What would you like to know? So important. Metadata is your #1 marketing tool, as they say. You can know what metadata is, I guess. It's just the information about your book. Very clearly, cleanly. You didn't used to have to worry about it digitally because it used to just all be printed on the physical copy of a book. I think that's so interesting. Like metadata was never really a word until Amazon, essentially, when we started selling books online, because we would just print everything on the book that you needed to know. The author, the title, the publisher, the description of the book, the author's bio was often put on the book, the ISBN number, the price of the book, everything that you think is metadata is not complicated, because we've all been printing it on books and we've been reading it on books forever. But when we started to sell books online, we needed to get more detailed with what kind of information is needed about a book in order to sell that book online. So it really is just bare bones, basic information about a book, different ways you can transmit it. You can fill in a form. That's where people start. You just get on a computer and fill in a form, but you can be more complicated with data transmission and stuff once you get into the industry a little more.
Angela, I'd like to ask you about comp titles, just from the standpoint of, there's somebody I've been talking to recently who is very passionate about comp titles, but he's of the opinion that your comps don't have to be in the same genre. It's more about choosing somebody who has the same writing style. And to me, I think it is a lot more than just the same writing style. I think the genre is an important part of your comp titles. How do you feel about that?
I've never heard that before. At least he said the same writing style. At least there was something comparable, right? Because that's what a comp is. It's comparable to this other thing. So I've always done it in terms of genre, not just genre, but genre and writing style. Like it needs to be very similar, but it also needs to be very similar in terms of units you anticipate selling. So I don't think a comp title for something that is, again, the classic example that is kind of a children's wizard story is Harry Potter. Your comp title is never Harry Potter. Your comp title is another book that sold 5,000 copies or 10,000 copies, but is in a similar vein. Like I think they need to be comparable on multiple levels. It'd be hard to think about it across genre.
Yeah, because this person was even arguing that it wouldn't even have to be, you could find a comp title that was fiction for a nonfiction book if the writing style was the same, because readers read across genres. And I'm like,
I don't hate it. I'll just tell you, Tara, I've never heard it, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Do you know this guy who just wrote Clara and the Sun? Do you know this book called Clara and the Sun?
No, I don't.
Issue Yamagati, or he just won the Pulitzer Prize for it. His writing style is so crazy and unique. And I think if you told me it's like the writing style is like this guy, but it was a nonfiction book, I'd be like, oh, okay, I get it. I understand. So I don't hate it, but I've just never heard anybody talk about it that way. You'd have to explain it. You have to be like, it's a comp title, but only in this way.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's actually the people that made, I don't know if you see Bowker promoting Score It quite often. And Score It is a tool that is supposed to tell you who you write like, so that you can figure out how to promote your book. And that's what, it's all AI that's doing this writing style analysis. And so they'll give you comp titles that have nothing to do with the genre that you write in.
Right.
I really don't. I think it has to be both writing style and at least a shoulder genre to go so dramatically from fiction to nonfiction. I don't know.
Yeah. Pat, you have a parting question? Your hand is up.
Did she remember it? And back down.
Just trying to see if
the brain cell was not dead. It just took a little vacation. We were talking about getting involved with FAPA, and you don't have to be a member of the board to do that. And for instance, I think last month we had somebody say that they were actually interested in helping us with doing the baskets, the raffle baskets for, and they are awesome. And if there's anybody that's interested in that, we are interested in you two doing that. But there's also, you don't have to be a member of the board to get involved with FAPA. Right. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, that's a very good point. We have lots of ways for people. So the board members were just a point of entry. So so we can help. Evan, if you have ideas about things you want to bring I mean, for example, Practical Tips. I'm a board member, but I don't really have to be a board member to be running this. So we're always looking for opportunities to expand programming, to get more of information and knowledge and networking to members across Florida and elsewhere more effectively. And there are a variety of different ways that can be done. So anything that anybody feels that they would be interesting or helpful to expanding and leveraging this network, just reach out to us. Not that you have to be a board member, just we can probably connect you with other people, but volunteer too. Just volunteer. Don't wait for permission. Just say, hey, I'd like to do this, and say, and if it's a good idea, we'll give you a blessing for you to do it. So we can structure it. We've got a lot of depth in the board and in the membership. So we can, if you have a good idea, we can probably leverage it, and we can probably help you get it up and out.
Also, if anybody has any ideas of what you'd like to see on Practical Tips, we'd like to hear from you. Some ideas, just some ideas that you would like to see. We record these, and so if we've done it already, we've kind of done it already, but if you have something new, let us know. Appreciate it.
Yep. Okay. Angela, thank you so much. It was so great to meet you. Thank you for spending time with us. I think we're definitely gonna get some people going to a conference in April, I think. So
I will send the info to you guys. You can share it across, or you can, it's probably just easy enough to put this in the chat. The conference website, but you'll get a discount through FAPA. So don't register yet. You can't even register yet, but when you can, make sure you use your FAPA discount. And if you don't get one, I guess you can email me.
Yep, great.
I'm already registered.
Yeah,
that's right. You are. We do have like 40 people already registered coming off of the last conference, which was great.
Nice.
So you'll have 40 friends. Thank you guys. I so enjoy meeting people doing this work. Thank you for sharing your experiences. It's really, really been a good hour. It's been a great hour.
Great.
Enjoy your evenings. Let us know how we can help.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank
Angela.
you.